Today I'm going to show you how to make the Miura Ori magic ball again, but with grid lines. You may recall we put just 8 horizontals into the previous version. It was enough to do the valley folds, but we had to estimate the positions of the mountain folds. Even putting the half square horizontals in would not have put the folds on the grid lines. The bowl was 22 squares wide and 8.5 squares tall, using half a square for every diagonal. For this ball, we're going to remove that extra spacing. For the middle section, there are 7 1-in-1 gradient diagonals, and in between 6 1-in-2 gradient diagonals. So that's half a square there, giving 3.5 squares, and a quarter of a square here, giving 1.5 squares. That's a total of 5 squares for the middle section. The outside diagonals are 1/8 of a square tall. It's going to be a bit fiddly to add into the count, so we'll allocate a half square for it. And then there are 2 empty half squares at the ends. That gives a total of 7 squares. Now let's see whether there's an easy-ish way to fold those grid lines. So let's work out how we're going to fold those horizontal grid lines. So we can work more in whole and half numbers. We're going to count each half square as 1. So 7 squares equals 14 half squares. Now I've tried doing the numbers both as 7 squares and 6 squares, leaving off the blank half squares at the ends. The numbers work out a lot better with 6 squares. So we're going to do it as 6 squares. When we do the actual folding, we'll just fold the 2 end pieces back to make 6 squares. So let's start again. So that's 1 half square for the 1-in-4 gradient diagonal. Then 1 half square for the 1-in-1 valley fold. Then half for the 1-in-2 mountain fold, giving 2.5. 1 for the valley fold, giving 3.5. Then half for the mountain fold, giving 4. 1 for the valley fold, giving 5. And so on. 5.5, 6.5, 7, 8, 8.5, 9.5, 10, 11, 12, and finally 12. If you had all the verticals, you could mark out the horizontals by just doing a small crease against it. But it would be much cleaner to use your existing grid lines to get new grid lines. Now see how 8, 4, 2 and 1 are all in the grid line pattern. So once you have the 8, you could fold 4, 2 and 1 just by folding up from the end. The good thing is it's symmetric from both sides, so you can do the same folds from the other side as well. This will give you, in addition to 4 and 8, 10 and 11 as well. Now if you fold up from the bottom to 11, you'll get 5.5, which is half of 11. And folding up to 10, you'll get 5. Folding down from the top, you'll get 12 plus 1 divided by 2 is 6.5. And folding from the top down to 2, you'll get 12 plus 2 divided by 2, which equals 7. Now halve the 7 to give 3.5 and halve the 5 to get 2.5. From the top, folding 12 down to 5 will give you 8.5, and 12 down to 7 will give you 9.5. That's it for the middle section. Now we want the outer 1 in 4 gradient at position 0.75, but there's nothing to fold that to. But if we unfold the end flap, the 2.5 becomes 3.5, and we can fold up to that to get 1.75. Here's the ball with 22 squares across. Because the folds are closer together, then I think we can actually reduce the number of squares across down to maybe 16 like this ball. So instead of measuring 12 squares across, we're going to measure 8 squares up. This will allow up to 11 squares across on an A4 or 10 squares across on US letter. Luckily, we can still fold the half and quarter folds as they become the 7 and 11 grids in the grid pattern. We'll use this horizontal fold to make the vertical folds more accurate. So fold a diagonal to mark out the 8th vertical. Leave a little crease in the middle as well as on the ends. Repeat from the other side. Now fold up to those marks to create the 4th vertical. Fold it in half again to create the 2nd vertical. Now lightly crease the diagonal again from the second vertical to mark the 10th vertical. Again, leave a slight crease in the middle. Repeat from the other side. Fold from the second vertical to the 10th vertical to get the 6th vertical. Fold the diagonal from the 4th vertical and just leave a crease this time just in the middle. Repeat from the other side. Fold up from the 6th vertical to the 10th vertical to get the 8th vertical. Do one last diagonal crease from the 6th vertical. Now fold back from the 8th to the 10th to get the 9th square. Cut out at the last vertical. Now divide the larger verticals in half. Divide one side in half horizontally. And in half again. Now cut off that top square. On the other side, mark out one square. Leave a few marks along the bottom. Fold back half a square on both sides. You can fold these two towards the front. Now we're going to mark out the grid line at the 8 position. Fold back 2 of the verticals, then do a diagonal and leave a mark at the end. Leave a few marks across the page. From the other side of the page, fold up to the marks we've just made. From the other side, fold back to the crease. This will effectively divide the sheet into thirds. Now that we have the 8 and the 4, fold the 2 and the 1 from both sides. Now fold up to the 11. This will give us 5.5. Repeat from the other side. Now fold up to the 10, giving us 5. Repeat from the other side. We have 5.5 and 6.5 around the center square, and 5 and 7 on either side of those. So just halve the 7 to get 3.5 and halve the 5 to get 2.5. Do the same from the other side. To fold the outer diagonal grid lines, we'll unfold and then fold up to the 3.5 mark, giving us 1.75. That's all the horizontals done. Now complete all the vertical half squares. going to start putting in some of the 45-degree diagonals using the crimping method. Fold back the horizontal above the first row of full half squares. Fold back the second vertical and bring it up to meet the horizontal on both sides. Put in the end diagonal and repeat the crimping fold to the end of the page. Now we're going to do some of the mountain folds. It will be easier if we concertina the vertical folds, starting with a mountain fold on the outside. Let's start with the first row of 1 and 2 gradient folds. It will be underneath the row of valley folds we've just folded. Just mountain fold between opposite corners of the grid, forming a little V. Just mountain fold between opposite corners of the grid, forming a little V pointing in the same direction as the valley folds. I find it easier to fold through the bottom corner first, and then it will naturally find a piece of resistance in the top corner. But you can do it either way. Repeat to the end of the page. Now let's do the 1 in 4 gradient folds in the line above. It's a bit trickier because it's thinner, but we just crease between opposite corners like we did before. Repeat till the end of the page. Now we're going to do our first collapse. Run that mountain fold up until the lower diagonal. The vertical changes into a valley fold for a little bit, then back into a mountain fold, and then finally back into a valley fold. In other words, the very top part of the vertical is in an opposite direction to the bottom part. As you keep going, you'll find the diagonals you've creased falling into their natural shape. Keep going across the rest of the page. Collapse fully when you've done a few. There's the first collapse done. I'm quickly going to do the rest of the valley folds. Actually, it just got really hot, so I've done the rest of the valley folds inside. The good thing about the crimping method is that you can pretty much do it by feel. So continue doing the next row of mountain folds. Now collapse again, taking into account the previous rows. That's 2 sections done. On to the next row. and collapse again. That's 3 sections done. Mount and fold again. Collapse again. That's 4 sections done. You know what? You know the drill. I'll join you again for the last row. Okay, now we're on the last row, the 1 in 4 gradient. Make this one look similar to the other side, with a valley fold on the outer edge. That's one piece complete. So make another one, and now we're going to glue them together. Make sure they're lying the same way. Then straighten out just the edge of one side and apply glue on top of one square. Do the same on the other side, except apply the glue to the bottom. Now line the two edges up and then press together. While the glue is still a little wet, redo some of those mountain folds. Let it dry a little more, then press it firmly together. Give it a good squeeze. Now glue the other ends. Now for the final collapse. Be a bit careful here as it's not meant to fold flat like the normal magic ball. You can do the inside out trick to give it a firmer press. The ball is complete.